Talking about small business and entrepreneurship. We have a special guest today, Collette Portis. Go ahead, Collette. Talk to the people a little bit.
Hey, y'all.
Don't be shy.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what we're talking about today and give y'all some good jewels.
Yes. So Collette Portis, and she'll give more of an intro. She is a master business coach, owner of Red Development Group. She is have multiple degrees, over 27 years of business experience in business. She's on her pursuit of getting a doctorate degree in transformational leadership. She is an influencer, been involved in writing in many different publications. She serves in many different boards, even the board that her and I are part of. She is the board chair of McDonald YMCA. So she's wearing many different hats, and she's making time right now to come and talk to us and share some wisdom. So thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want y'all to remember we brought y'all some big hitters, you know. So first we want to get into the top headline, right? So one of the headlines, Igwe, that's been really sort of like a big deal now is this whole deal with Clarence Thomas and his wife, and the question of whether he should recuse himself based on the fact that she sort of participated in some of these January 6th riot situations. So I think he should recuse himself. I think it's kind of obvious when you go back and you look at other situations that are similar. It's clear that he needs to step down. He should not be ruling on cases that relate to that. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. I think he should recuse himself. I think some of the comments from his wife that he shared to former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who worked under Trump, are disturbing. Seemed like she was trying to find ways to circumvent certification of the election, her involvement and potentially for the riot. Some of those text messages are very disturbing. Now, it brings to question, because the wife makes the comments, does that mean that she is speaking on behalf of her husband or partner? So those are the questions where that's the fine line people have to deal with it. But I do think there needs to be at least an investigation, dive into it. Am I ready to say, hey, there's people asking him to maybe retire or step down? I'm not saying that yet. I do think he should recuse himself from certain cases that tie to the January 6th riot. And I do think that, there needs to be some more, that looking at Jenny and looking at his wife and her efforts should be part of the larger January 6th investigation that's going on. Keep looking into it, dive in and see if there's any other connections or does it lead to any other path. But I would hope that he's going to recuse himself when it comes to cases tying to Trump, January 6th terrorism, terrorism act, riot, and then let's see where the facts lie as we keep digging in. What you think, Collette?
I think, in any other situation, if it were, a circuit court judge or, an attorney or something like that, that would have been what happened.
Yeah.
They would have recused themselves. And so I don't understand why this is so different. If that's what protocol is, then why are we treating it as if it's not what protocol is when your role and your responsibility is to rule? Mm-hmm. If you can't do that objectively because you are influenced or you have some sort of influence or some sort of bias, mm-hmm. then why are we not? I don't even know why we're having a conversation. We shouldn't even be having a conversation. It should have just happened because that's what normally happens.
I agree. When people make it political, then
ethics 101 though, right? Just judicial ethics would just call for him to recuse himself.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So the other topic we want to talk about is Brittany Griner. And for those who don't know, she is a WNBA basketball player.
A star in the league, yeah.
Star in the league. And she went to Baylor. We remember her going through Baylor University, and then she's a WNBA star. She's also playing basketball in Russia. She got, it happened I think a few months back where she got stopped for having vape cartridge tied to containing hashish oil. And so that's apparently an offense. And so she's been in jail. I think her hearing doesn't come up until May 19th. They're saying that she can go to jail between 5 to 10 years. She didn't have any access to anyone else or to any U.S. personnel. I think recently an embassy official was allowed to have access to her finally. They say she's calm, but there's not enough attention in my opinion. I mean, there's been some attention, but I think to myself, like others mentioned, if this was a football player, if this was Patrick Mahomes, if there's other stars, if this was LeBron James, then there'll be a lot more attention, constant 24 hours. I mean, it'd be Ukraine and LeBron and Ukraine constantly. And so it's sad it's not getting enough attention because I think that would have forced the U.S. and others to respond more quickly. And not to say, I think they're probably doing some things in the background where some things got to be taken in back channel, not to agitate Russia. Yeah. But I just will hope that there's more expediency to really get her out. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm a lover of the WNBA. And I think we are all aware of the difference in which the WNBA, the NBA, or the NFL, or men's sports is handled just in general as it compares to women's sports. So I think you're right in that there would have been a more expeditious response. And I think there probably needs to be a more expeditious response. And something more needs to happen. I just think it's unfair. And then when you also think about the resources she has available to even defend herself, is significantly less. So you don't have the attention that someone with resources that are far greater than yours would have. She's at a real disadvantage.
Right. I think one of the things that's really noticeable, we kind of touched on it, is just the fact that so many people have sort of kind of played that blame game of like, okay, well, why was she there in the first place? Or why did she have these, you know what I'm saying, fake cartridges? And I think one, people got to realize that part of the reason why she was in Russia is because WNBA stars, right, can make far more money in an off season playing basketball in Russia than they can in a whole season in the WNBA. So there's an economic reason, there's a big reason why she was there in the first place. The other thing is that I've heard a lot of people talk about, they're like, well, we just want to keep it quiet because, you know, we don't want Putin, we don't want the Russians to use it as a pawn to sort of get things from the US, like, okay, well, we'll give you Brittany Griner back if you do this. But my whole thing is, we wouldn't be saying that, like you said, if it was a LeBron, if it was a Patrick Mahomes, or even just some a lesser known male athlete, I feel like there still would be a lot more spotlight on it. So I think we need to talk about it. I think we need to, put it out on Front Street so that we keep the spotlight on this issue and we don't forget about what's going on, because the more that it's put out there, the more the attention that it gets, I really believe that's when we'll start to see, more movement on it. Obviously, the Russian government is going to do what they do, but put the pressure on them at least, right? Like let's not just let them go and not do anything. So yeah, I'm my thoughts and prayers are with her and her family that she comes home soon. Yep. All right, so it wouldn't be a show if we didn't talk about the Oscars 2022 and the infamous slap, smack, whatever you want to call it. But man, so many thoughts on this, right? So many thoughts on so many different levels. I, for one, will say that I'm in the camp where I feel like it wasn't justified. Y'all may disagree, but I think the joke was in poor taste, but I don't think it justified Will Smith going up there. And I think he should have waited for a different time to address it. Now, that being said, I understand why he felt the need to do it. I understand why it was a moment where it's like, I gotta act now. But I wish it hadn't happened. But what do y'all think about it?
Go ahead, Collette. We want to hear from Black woman's perspective. Go ahead.
So as a mother of a young Black man, I agree with you that wasn't the time and the space. My heart wishes it would have been handled outside of the eye of the world. Right. Okay, so that's mine.
At the PCS, you know, that's really.
The other piece of it is, I'll tell you my first response was, good Lord. My second response was, now you have to know I'm a person who doesn't watch television, so I didn't even know it happened for 3 days later. But when I saw it, then my next response was, ooh, somebody stood up for a black woman. Right? And then my next response was like, this is terrible that I have to feel that way. In a situation like this, when my heart says, I wish that would have happened. I wish it would have been handled differently. I think, yes, he still should have stood up for his wife. And then at the end of it all, what I think we all have to remember is I don't live in that spotlight. I do my darndest to make sure I don't live in that spotlight. But let's talk Will and Jada specifically in that spotlight. It has been years of berating from one thing to the next thing, and not just them, but their children. At what point did anybody expect that this man would stand up for his family? Like, I think we all should have really been expecting it, but we expect him to be really nice, Will. We forget it from Philly, right? We all expect him to be really nice, Will, but the truth of the matter is, if it had been you, and all of those years of berating and talking about them and talking about their children and everything, at what point does a man, do we say, you know what, at some point, because I feel like over time it might have gotten to the place where like, when are you gonna stand up? Right? Was it handled the right way in the right time? No, I don't think so. But from just being a person, at some point, you gotta stand up and for your people. Let me tell you what ain't gonna happen. No more. Let me tell you what ain't gonna happen.
What's not gonna happen?
Yeah, that probably ain't gonna happen no more, because they're gonna be scared they're gonna get smacked. That's all I'm saying.
How do I dissect this? So, when my wife first told me about it, I was like, man, this is fake. And then I checked it again. Oh, I wasn't like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I said, is that a punch or smack? I was trying to figure out, oh, was it a punch or slap?
Yeah, because he wound that thing up.
Yeah, he wound it up. Yeah, I needed a moment to process that. I need to know it, because there's a difference, between a slap.
Right arm,
Yeah,
his left arm.
exactly. And so after I seen that and then seeing the reaction, I was like, man, at first I thought that Chris Rock knew about Jada Pinkett's condition, hair loss condition, was alopecia. I thought he knew about that. Then later on they said he didn't know about it. I don't condone his behavior publicly. Me personally, I would have taken it in the back, wait till after the show. I wish he'd have waited after the show. Then, if you want to have the conversation, if you end up swinging at him, it is what it is. But I think he should have handled it after the show, especially because now, the reason why I was thinking about that is because Serena was there. Venus Sisters was there. The Williams Sisters was there. This was their moment. This was a moment about the film. And then 20 minutes later, right, he won the Oscar, and then he had his speech, which was a bit emotional. And then he made an interesting comment about, when Denzel was comforting him, that Denzel mentioned something, and this was a great line, but it essentially says that at your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you. And so I was like, yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So I don't condone his action. I think he should have waited till after the show, had that talk with Chris Rock and say, yo, that's disrespectful. I think what happened is, this is a buildup of his family being ridiculed. Their family are very open as far as sharing what's going on with them, with the whole entanglement, everything going on. I think people have been making fun of him. They've been making fun of Jada. They've been going after him. Remember, I think Regina Hall was making comments earlier about him, early when the show got started, about the entanglement. I think I read. So, and then you have that. I think it was build up. He's like, I got to defend my wife. Like, it's enough.
Yeah. I think, and I don't even know if it was necessarily that, but I think as humans, all of us would explode. I was blessed enough to last week be in a room with Denzel and hear him talk about the situation. And he said exactly what you said. what was heartwarming though about the situation and how Denzel described it. Number one, he protected both Chris and Will, and I loved that because about a minute later it was in the news we were like, what? Like he just said. So how was that? Coming up on our phone. But he protected them. But it was also an opportunity for. He did it in a situation, in a space where it could have been way worse than what it was, but he had a support system that was there to say, hey, bring it back down. This isn't necessarily the right place and space, because it could have gone a whole lot worse than what it did. But I think because of Tyler Perry, because of Denzel, because of them coming to, not necessarily his rescue, but coming to support him in that moment, is how he ended up in the space he ended up at when he accepted it.
No, I agree, and I hope they don't take his Oscar away. They shouldn't do that. No. I mean, if you want to suspend it for a year, that's fine. But I know people, I think some of the reactions, there's a lot of overreaction, right? Some people want to condemn him. I'm like, he had a moment. Let it go. He had a moment. Yes, critique him. We don't condone it. Let's move on. Let's not take his Oscar, because the Oscar is not just about him. It's actually about the film. It's about everyone who put into that film. That's my opinion.
How many other Oscar winners have had a moment that still got their Oscar? That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna leave that alone.
I'm gonna leave that alone. But no, we just wanted to go over those 3 headlines. We got to end it, of course, with that one. So we got to give our top headlines. But when we come back, you hear more from Collette Portis, our special guest, master business coach extraordinaire. We're gonna get to hear more about her, hear more about understanding how to start a small business. So stay tuned and come back with us on the Shot of E&J podcast.
All right, family, we are back with the Shot of E&J podcast. My name is Jeremy Renato Mensah, and I'm here with my co-host,
Eric Igwe.
And we're going to get into the topic du jour, talking about small businesses and entrepreneurship. So, Collette, now we'd like to hear more about your background and about, how you work with small businesses, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I am blessed in that I come from a family of entrepreneurs. And that means like my mom, my dad, both sets of my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. I didn't know literally that a time clock existed until I was 23. Wow. And I was traumatized. I was like, people gotta ask to go to the bathroom when they grown? Right? Kind of situation. So this is just the environment and the space that I grew up in. But in growing up in a family full of entrepreneurs, notice I'm using that word and I'm not saying business on it, because I believe that there's a difference. Life experience has taught me that there's a difference between between entrepreneur and business owner. And because my family was entrepreneurs, they didn't create something that would allow me to continue it. So when I started, I had to start from scratch because they didn't understand how to build a business. So my work every day is to help entrepreneurs become CEOs, because they are 2 different things. We got a lot of people with that on their business card, but they have no idea what it really means to be a CEO. And so that's what I do every day. My goal every day is to make sure that people are not, because entrepreneurs, we work 16, 18 hours a day. And to work like that and then not have anything left at the end or anything to pass on is tragic. Yeah. We don't talk about it that much because it's glamorous to be an entrepreneur. So I am blessed in that, 1, I got to have that experience with my family. But 2, God gave me the skills, the gift, the knowledge, the information, the access, the relationships in order to go and solve the problem and help people to build a legacy and teach people what it means to have a business, and then help them to build that, and then help them to create legacy, and then help them create generational wealth.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And like I said, that's what we brought you here. We know you have a lot to share. And so based on your experience, I'm coming right now, I want to start a business. I think I have a good idea. How does someone know they have a good business idea and they should take off with it?
If they can tell me what problem they're solving.
Okay.
right?
Yep.
I'm just gonna go home and say it, Jeremy. Don't tell Eric I said this, right? Well, we don't need another t-shirt company.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. Okay? If so, that doesn't mean that we will never have more t-shirt companies. That's not what that means. But what it means is try and figure out how to solve a problem. Because in my definition, entrepreneurs are the world's problem solvers. We find a problem, we solve it. That's why the pandemic for business, for entrepreneurs, it wasn't a terrible time, right? It created a bunch of problems that we could go out and solve, and so we did that. And some of us made lots of money. Somebody asked me today, what happened with your business during the pandemic? I was like, everybody understood that they needed me. So it was good. It was good for me. And so if you're going to start a business, first figure out what problem you're solving, and then secondly, make sure it's something you're passionate about. Make sure it's something that whether or not you can eat today or pay your rent, you're still willing to do.
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then don't do it, because it's not fair to give away your time, especially if you have family and children. It's not fair to give your time away, your resources away to something that you're really not that serious about, because it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of resources in order to do it.
That's real.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, the passion, because you see a lot of people that are like, oh, I just want to make money, or they're not passionate about it, right? So that kind of brings us to our next question. So I'm passionate about my business, but I'm looking for resources. How do I make that happen? And what should business owners or entrepreneurs, let me use the right word, what should they be looking for in terms of resources to get them to that next level?
So first and foremost, if you're in it for the money will always elude you. It's the reason why 95% fail, right? If you're looking for money, the money will elude you. You won't get it. If you're looking to solve a problem, then it becomes easier every day, because you start learning who has the problem, and who you need to solve it for. And how much are they willing to pay you to solve their problem, which is why the first step is figure out what problem you're going to solve. So that's step one. If you can figure that out, it literally almost will give you the steps. But the other piece, and I say this all the time, and I'm not saying it just because I'm a business coach, but you need a coach and you need a mentor. And they are two different things. Your coach has been there. They've done it. They're going where you want to go. So they can sojourner truth you. Right? They can tell you what the passageway is, because they've been through the passageway multiple times. Where your mentor is that person that's your sounding board. That's going to tell you whether or not, I need you to go back to the drawing board on that idea before you go start spending a lot of money on it. By the time you get to your coach, you've decided, this is a great idea. Yeah. I'm going to spend some money on it, and I'm really and spend my time on it so that I can really move this thing forward.
So going back into resources, you hear this often. I have a business, but I go to the bank. I can't get a loan. I don't know what to do next. Probably gonna end my business or won't move forward. So how can they circumvent it? How can they able to get those what are some funding options? I don't want people to walk here with a business and they say, hey, bank denied them, and this is the end of their journey.
Okay, so I want you to bring me back to that question, because I'm probably going to forget, because I'm about to tell you something, but I think it's more important, right?
Yep.
Oftentimes, so last weekend I had the blessed opportunity to hear Von Jones talk about Elon Musk giving him $100 million.
Was Elon or Jeff Bezos?
Jeff Bezos.
Okay. I was like,
This one, he my friend. Jeff Bezos giving him $100 million. And he talked about how he ended up at that table and how his name was being spoken in rooms that he wasn't in. He didn't have access to. And because of that, he ended up in this room with just Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, all of these people with all this money. And before he went in that room, he was really nervous. And then he decided before walking through the threshold that I'm just going to tell them my story. I'm just going to tell them why I want to do this. And so Jeff Bezos said, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. And then 2 days later called him and offered him $100 million. A lot of times if you're an entrepreneur, I need you to think outside the box. Don't quit trying to take the traditional route because, yeah, the bank has the opportunity to deny you because every entrepreneur out there is coming to ask them for money. So they get to be selective. But how about using your relationships? I was interviewing a young lady for an internship in my company today, and her mom was there. And I said to her, I said, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. Who do you know? Everything you need is in your network if you have one. But if you're not willing to build that network, because guess what? You could get $100 million and still not know what to do with it and not have enough capital.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I saw this during the pandemic. I saw people get a lot of money. A lot of money, yes. And EIDL, and money that got forgiven and all of that kind of stuff, and still closed their door because we didn't know what to do with the money. So it's not just about going to get the money. Don't ever stop there. You need to decide what to do with the money before you go get it so you can go get the right amount of money, because I also seen people go get a small amount of money, their company was worth more, and then lose the company because the small amount of money that they got, they couldn't pay that back, right? So when we have this conversation about capital and funding, and it's a really flat, one-dimensional conversation. It is not one-dimensional. There's crowdfunding. I help my clients with crowdfunding, and what's interesting, I always pay attention to the dynamics when you're talking about age. And my clients that are older, so 50 years old or older, they will not crowdfund because they don't want to go ask people for money. But you'll go to the bank and you'll put together this whole business plan that you ain't gonna ever use again, and it took you 6 months to do, right? To go beg them for money to only get denied, where you can get people encouraged by your idea and the reason why you're doing it, and get money that you don't even have to pay back. So there's many ways of getting capital that we just have to be creative, not just in the solution that we offer, but being creative in everything you do in your business.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. It's good to know people don't always go the traditional route. Don't always say the bank is the be all and all. So no, it's good to talk about the different options, crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, network. So no, that's good. At least it gives people a lot of hope. Now, I want you to describe, as you see, I always hear stories about business fail, the disturbing numbers of how many business fail within the first 2 years. What are some of the major pitfalls that you see that have kept businesses from being successful?
I had the pleasure of listening to Janice Howroad. And if you don't know who Janice Howroad is, she is an African-American woman worth almost $3 billion with a B dollars. She's got 50 staffing agencies, she's got staffing agencies in 50 countries. She started her company with $600 that she had and $900 she borrowed from her mom, right? And now her largest competitor is one of her subcontractors. And the company that she wanted to contract for, that they had to contract for, is now licensing her technology. Right? How about that? Right? So, what did you ask me? Because I started.
No, what are some of the major pitfalls that you see that keep business from being successful?
One of the things that she talked about that I loved, because it's my wheelhouse, is we don't have processes that will cause us to duplicate things, right? We don't have consistency. You go to your favorite restaurant, they do it different every time. If you got the pork chop today, and then the next time you got it and it wasn't good, you're probably not coming back because you don't know if they're going to be consistent. Well, it's the same. I don't care what business you're in. It could be t-shirts, it could be hot dogs, it could be hairstylists, whoever. You have to create some consistency standards, which means you need a process. And what I see more often than not is there's no process. People come and you say, I will take your money and I will give you this thing. But you didn't ask any questions before you took their money, but then you say, oh, these customers are crazy. Well, you didn't get the right information that you needed because you have no intake process, right? You didn't give them the result that they needed because you have no process to guarantee the kind of result. And then the other thing is the founder or the CEO or the person running the company, they're controlling everything because they can't trust anybody because they have no system. They have no checklist for what this person is supposed to do to complete this task using the standards of that organization, because they don't have any standards.
Yep.
That really is the biggest killer of business. If you don't have a process, then you're leaving it up to everybody else's interpretation as it pertains to your business every single day. And it's yours one day, and then it's yours one day. And y'all might be partners, but it doesn't matter. Everybody's experiences and lenses are different. And unless you create a process, you're gonna get something different every single time. And as consumers, we like consistency. If I go to Burger King, I want that wrapper hot.
Yep.
It better have everything on it,
Yep.
and the right amount of mayo and
Yep.
ketchup.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
No, you're right.
Right?
No, you're right. No, that's real. No, I appreciate that. No, so when we come back, we're gonna dive more into Black entrepreneurship, talk about how we can utilize elected officials to help you move your business forward. So this has been great content. Please come back and stay tuned on the Shot of E&J podcast.